Welcome back to 2.5 Mali's summer edition. As you can see, we're all wearing our summer colors right here.
Of course.
I'm not gonna. We didn't match Nora's blazer. I forgot my blazer at home, guys. But it's been a minute. But we came with the heat, guys. We're honored with our special guest Nora Elmi.
For sure.
She's a registered social worker. She's a mental health advocate.
What else?
And she is a therapist as well, mental health therapist.
Yes.
And she's the owner and founder of Elmi Wellness and Counseling, or Counseling and Wellness.
Yes.
We need a clap right there. We need
Yeah,
a clap.
Welcome. Glad to be back, man. How you guys doing? How's everybody?
Alhamdulillah, man. I'm happy that we're finally back. It's been a while since we put out a podcast episode. I think we collectively agreed we were only waiting for the banger ones. So
Of
that's why we
course.
had to bring Noora.
100%.
course.
100%.
And I feel like this topic was due with a professional,
Absolutely.
right? We've been very inconsistent. People are probably wondering why. We have a lot of issues. Right? And we need to get it diagnosed by the one and only Nora. That's the only way we could go about it.
And
I mean,
you know-
hopefully we'll fix up after this.
Exactly.
Maybe.
And you know we're smart.
Yeah.
This is our free counseling, brother.
Free counseling.
We got a free 1-hour session.
Invoice is coming.
No. Budget is very low right now, so we'll see what we can do.
How you doing, Nora? How's everything?
I'm good. I'm really excited. You know, I've been kind of watching your podcast from afar, seeing all the wonderful guests you guys have, and you just have such amazing energy, and you guys are finger on the pulse. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like, you guys know what's going on in the city and just
Appreciate
kind of globally. So I'm really excited to be here and honored to be your guest this summer. So
Thank you so
for
much.
having me.
We can just go right into it. Mental health, like social work. It's rare for people in our community to be in these spaces. What, was your motivation to enter that space, enter this field?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And depending on the time, I give you a long-winded answer. I can just kind of go to it, but. Well, it's two-part for me. I think, one is like lived experience that really brought me here, but also like a hunger and drive to like want to change something and have impact, So I grew up with a single mom who raised 4 daughters, mashallah. And like we grew up in like like priority neighborhoods, you want to call it. And so a lot of the time she was like working 2-3 jobs, So she wasn't really around to be able to raise us and to do all the things that a boy would love to do, right? She tried her best, which was amazing. And so a lot of my childhood and youth growing up, I spent a lot of time at programs, whether it was like the Boys and Girls Club, United Sisters, Misha Heights, where I grew up. Like I was always in programs, either as a volunteer, or not volunteer, like as a guest or like a attendee of the program. And then I graduated to being a volunteer, and that was like my home, a place that took care of me. But while I was there, me not knowing at the same time that I'm doing all this analysis, I was like, where are the people that look like us when it comes to the mental health work?
For sure.
Where are the people who look like us when it comes to the policy? Where are the people who look like us when it comes to like the directors and the managers and the leadership, And a lot of times I didn't see it there, right? And this is due to the fact that education is a big barrier that a lot of us struggle with. So I would say what brought me to the field, and even though it was a long journey, I did not come straight to the field right away, y'all. Let me tell you that, and we'll talk about it today. But I was like, life experience led me to see things and experience things, and I really wanted to be able to get support from people who look like me, and so I decided to be that. So
Amazing.
yeah.
Amazing.
So you know what? Growing up, as in our community, like Somali person, black, a woman, did you ever see like mental health being brought up as you're growing up? Your mom just saying randomly, take a mental health break. You know what I mean? Do you ever see it coming up?
Answering this question is hard because I'm a mental health therapist now, so you would think I would know these things, but growing up, I did not see us talking about mental health. I did not see clinical mental. What are you talking about? These spaces did not exist, And so I think I was very much in the camp that it was taboo. That as Somali women, we always hear like "dah hira" and just keep going, and so that's what I did. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't recognize it, but looking back, I see some of my coping strategies and things that I do to take care of my mental health, and I actually learned that from my mom. So I think it's not that we don't know it, it's that we don't talk about it in a way that we can name it. But let me tell you, the amount of times, and y'all, if people follow me on Instagram, they know the amount of times I'm just gonna grab a coffee, go somewhere by the water, and I thought that that's something that I like, but when I look back at it, that's all that my mom used to do. We'd stress her out, she'd be like, I'll be back. Tim Hortons double French vanilla at the time, English toffee was available then, She would go, she would sit by the water for like an hour, 2 hours, and then she comes home calm, So sometimes we pick up things, but I didn't know much about it. I learned as I go.
One thing about like mental health that like sticks out to me, especially within our community, is a lot of times like people talk about how mental health is something that doesn't necessarily exist. It's not something that we should be talking about. A lot of times, you know, they connect it with deen. Like, for someone who is struggling with these issues, a lot of the time they say that, you know, it's due to low iman.
It's a very like normal conversation that we hear, but I think subhanallah, like Allah would not give us something if it wasn't something that we all experience, right? Like yes, we're all like, you know, you can tie your camel too, right? But at the end of the day, it's like you can pray your salah, you can make your dhikr, you can have like, you know, make all the dua, but you're human, right? And with human, we all have tests, and with being human, you all have experiences, right? And so having like experiencing anxiety, experiencing depression, experiencing stress, these are all very normal things. And so it's not that our parents or our community members don't experience that, but I think for them, alhamdulillah, and it's great, like a big protective factor for them is their faith, right? And even though we have our faith, like we're still experiencing things at work, at school, in our daily lives, you know? So I think it's there, but again, it's not being named and it's not being talked about in the way that we're talking about it now. And so when we hear like, you know, breaking the stigma of mental health, like what that just means is like be able to talk about it so that people know. And an example of this is like anytime I go to an event in the Somali community, I'm usually talking to youth, right? Like I'll try to engage the youth, be interactive, do all the things, right? And then without a doubt, there'll be a Somali Hoyer Alba that comes to me and say, you know, markan yara waxan waan dareemi jiray, ama they'll be like, you know, I used to experience this, you know, I think it's great that you're talking about it because growing up I didn't get to talk about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And just from us being in those spaces, they normalize it. So I think, you know, yes, make your dua, pray your prayers, do all of those things. And if you're still experiencing stress, anxiety, depression, that is normal, seek support, right? Because you're human at the end of the day. So
funny enough, growing up, like specifically in my family, a lot of times my grandma would come up to me and tell me like, you have all these different resources was something that we never had. And then even her explaining to me that a lot of these times we had to just take it upon our shoulders, you know what I mean? Because not only I felt like it was seen as something that's weak to be going out and talking to certain people about issues that you might be having in your family, issues that you might be going on just normally. Specifically, I feel like in men. And that's something I really would like to talk about.
Absolutely.
let's get into it.
I feel like as a man, you know what I mean?
As a man,
in 2025,
As a man.
you know what I mean?
Okay.
I just feel like, I think generally it's just hard to speak out about issues that are going on with myself or just generally with men. What do you guys feel about that?
It's like a week. Sometimes, you know what it is? Like, I feel like when we link up, guys just to link up just to talk about sports, this, that.
Yeah.
So when
Surface
it gets real
level.
heavy and serious, it's like, yo, we don't know how to comfort each other. I feel like that's the
100%.
biggest issue, you know what I mean? So maybe it's because one thing on that point of like the workshops and all that, I wanted to go back to it real quick is, do you feel like it's worth it to really, instead of teaching kids or people going through mental health symptoms about like these different things like depression, anxiety, do you think it's worth it to educate the parents of these symptoms and make it not taboo? Like it's okay if a guy wants to cry, it's okay if he wants to come to you. I feel like that's where the real issue is in my opinion. You know what
Brother,
I mean?
it's
I feel like
it's
the
crazy.
obs are too like hard body on the kids.
Bro,
you know?
it's crazy. It's wallahi, it's like, first of all, why are we even? Let's keep it real.
Yeah.
If a guy like us, we're good guys. You know what I mean?
That's what some people say. Yeah.
Allegedly.
Some people say we're good guys. Allegedly good guys, right?
Yeah.
But like, for example, in most guys, if a guy was to say, "Man, my mental health," brother, let's be honest, guys are laughing at
You're
that
laughing
guy.
at
Facts.
You know what I
Facts,
mean?
facts.
That guy's getting laughed at.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? So it's still like even though it's 2025, like it's still something
It's
that's
seen as a feminine thing, you know what I
thing,
mean, in a
heavy.
way. I don't know
And
why.
you know what I mean? It's crazy. And
Yeah.
you know what? It's crazy because it brings us to our next question that we have. Nora, why do you feel that the only time a man can cry, why is it that the only time a man can cry is at a funeral?
Can I say something? This is
Yeah.
actually a throwback to the second episode at
Yeah.
2.5 Mollies we actually had when we were going through a conversation.
Yeah.
Literally, the episode was called "Why Must I Cry?"
Yeah.
Why must I
You know
cry?
what I mean?
It's called
And we were having a debate on whether it's socially acceptable for a man to be crying. But I just wanted to add that.
I'm gonna
in
be
there.
honest. I'm not gonna go against that. My word. I think it's wrong for a guy to cry. I think even at a funeral, take your tears and go hide it upstairs.
Put it in a
Be
box.
strong. Put it in a box. Right? Go back.
Put it on top of the
Listen,
shoulder. Is that what you're saying?
You have to like come out and really be that support for other people. I feel like.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's what I think. So maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe you can unpack this.
Can I tell you guys, as you're talking to me,
Yeah.
and I know y'all are bantering and everything.
Yeah.
Well, like as you guys are talking to me right now, I feel like physically, I feel it in my body, you know, and
Yeah.
it's because it's like, these are things that we all hear. Do you know what I mean? And like, I know it's like the this is what we're told. This is what's been like kind of like the stigma. This is what's normalized. But like, I don't know if you guys know, but like, I am a mom to 2 boys now, right? And so even like seeing you guys talk, mashallah, I'm just like, these are someone's children. Do you know what I mean? And I'm someone's mom now. And so I feel like the narrative around men is just what you guys have been taught, right? And that's just how you guys been carrying it. But it's because we're all in survival mode, okay? And so a couple of things here. I want to try to answer all your questions. I'm a good listener. You do a lot. But I think you answer your question of like, why do you think that men have to be strong? I think when people are in survival mode, okay, our nervous system is literally only looking for threats. It's saying, well, who do we have to protect? Where is the fear? Where is the anxiety, right? Like, it's always looking for threats. So we're never actually settled in our bodies, right? This goes for our generation, it goes for our parents' generation and beyond. And so when you're not settled in your body, emotions uncomfortable.
Yes.
Tears unfamiliar. What are we doing here? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because I'm used to just being hard and just having to get to the thing, right? And alhamdulillah, I always say like, that's like, I'm so grateful for survival because if it wasn't for survival, a lot of us would not be where we are right now. Like, survival got us here. But I think we're at the chapter now in our generations where we're recognizing, oh my God, like, we don't gotta stay in survival mode. Like, we can let loose a little bit and try to like live and thrive and be present in our bodies. And so it's literally a learned behavior. And there's this joke about like my husband, I always ask him like, yo, we got all day. Like, what you guys do? Nothing. Well, we're just pulling it, I'm like, okay, So, like, you went to go see these guys. How are they doing? Alhamdulillah, they're great. And I'm like, okay. Meanwhile, I know one just had a baby, one just got married. There's all this exciting things happening. But, well, the report back is just high level. High level. Alhamdulillah, we had a great day. It was awesome, And so, like, friends of mine, we get together and we laugh about these things. And, like, we find out, like, y'all are for real. Like, you don't actually talk about a lot of things. But I'm asking you some questions. And for our listeners, I ask you some questions. When you're hanging out with your friends and you're having a rough day and you've just been through it, okay? And you're together, you guys are hanging out, you're playing ball, you're making your podcast, you're chilling. Like, how's your heart feeling? Do you know what I mean?
Day to day?
Like, and it's not like just kind of a question to think about, right? Like, when you're chilling, right? And you're pulling up, you're all showing up, it's great, right? But these are the things we want you to think about. Like, how's your heart feeling?
Feel at ease.
At ease? I love that. But like I think this is the question to think about when you're like, oh, we don't like to talk about things. You don't have to talk about it, but I just want you to think about, what do you feel when you're with your people, right? Like, sometimes you had a hard day, but you're so like hard body, you don't want to talk about it.
Laugh it off, basically.
Right. But how's your heart feeling, right? What are your reoccurring thoughts? You're present here, but like, where's your mind really at? You know what I mean? And when you start to like really reflect and deep that like things are happening, then it makes like a little bit of leg room or a little bit of room to be able to talk about the thing, But yeah, sorry, go back to your question. I forgot now. It's been a while. So your question in the middle.
Why is it
Oh,
that
grief,
okay,
right,
yeah.
yes.
So why is it the only, I'll just say it again. So why do you think that the only time it's acceptable for men to cry is at a funeral? And even then, it's just 1 or 2 tears, perhaps.
Or you shouldn't be crying at all.
Yeah.
For some people.
Some people, right? On the Dinian end, we always say like sabr and iman, it's okay, right? Be strong and just have faith and patience, right? I mean, when you think about it, like, it's all about how we're being socialized, okay? So when I think about even like what therapy does, is it's helping a lot of people recognize, like, how have you been socialized as a person? What have you been taught? What have you been learning? What have you been observing? And what have you been kind of seeing around you, right? We are made up of like thoughts and experiences that have happened from our past and up until this date. So we're all taught actually that when we go to a funeral, like, you can cry, and if you think about it again, tapping back to the body, like, why do we cry when we go to like, people, like, you're sad, right? And your body's feeling that, and but we've made it acceptable and normal to cry at a funeral, and have made it difficult or kind of like taboo to cry because you just lost a job or like your heart is broken or you had a bad day, right? And so it's how we've been socialized, and it's important to recognize, like, does that actually work for me? That's kind of what it goes back to.
That's a good answer. But how do you get out of that mindset where you're like, okay, just, it doesn't work for me. Like, I want to be able to cry if I had a bad day.
Right.
But like, I still don't want to cry. Like, I'm scared how people are gonna perceive me. Like, they're gonna think I'm soft or whatever.
I think we all just got back from a networking event right now, and we were all there, so it was great. But I think someone said one of the things that they said was like, when you're doing something, you're doing it scared, you know? If you're experiencing emotions for the first time, like you're probably going to be unfamiliar with it, right? It's scary. And so I think if we live our whole lives thinking about how other people are going to perceive us, there's a lot of us that ourselves that we won't be able to uncover, you know? And so as alhamdulillah, as a mental health therapist working a lot of people with trauma, we talk a lot about how emotions are actually stored in our body. So let me tell you something, friend, okay?
Talk to me.
What you don't want to talk about, your body's talking to you about.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay?
I hear you.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm pointing fingers now, sorry. But like, what you don't want to talk about, eventually your body's going to tell you. So it's going to say, yo, I'm not feeling good. Start to break down. Emotionally, I can't handle it. It's going to start to break down.
Yes.
It's going to impact your food. It's going to impact your sleep. It's going to impact your relationships.
That's
The
true.
very people you're like, I don't want to cry in front of because they're going to judge me. You're going to see yourself distancing from them
Yeah, at
because
home
you don't
always,
feel
yeah.
comfortable talking to them.
That's true. That's true.
So for us, it's not even like it's important to not focus just on the thing you're avoiding, but the impact that it has on your body. And that's why I think why I love working in our community specifically is we're all in our head all the time. Like, what are you thinking? You know, what are the thoughts that you have? What's your mind saying? And I'm like, forget all of that for a moment. How's your body doing? And wallahi, when we tap into our body, we get a lot of information.
So Nora, the thing that I want to touch up on that point that you just said is that food can be a thing. Like I even noticed it because when I noticed my situation where
yes.
I'll be honest here.
I can
I'll
relate.
be honest
I can relate.
I'll be honest here. For me, sometimes when things are going crazy, and I'm like just like a hectic work day, I'm not eating a salad.
Absolutely not.
I'm not.
I'm
I'm
not.
getting a large shawarma plate. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm serious. No, I'm
2
being honest here.
Popeyes biscuits on the side.
Popeyes biscuits,
Of course.
Fruitopia. You know what I
Of
mean?
course.
And in reality, when you just said that, it resonated with me because I was like, yo, that's true. Sometimes I may not say it in different ways. Some people cry, some of this. I might just go to Popeyes. You know what I mean? You know, I'm saying on a serious tip.
It's real life.
This happened.
Well, I'm actually serious.
Sorry.
Listen, biscuit gonna solve a whole lot of things, okay? But it's not gonna make it go away. But I hear you.
So like, I feel like that. And what are your thoughts on that? And I feel like
And coping.
I'll-
Like
coping,
mechanisms.
different ways of coping. You know
Some
what I
people,
mean?
some people might dabble in the marijuana.
Weed,
You know what I mean? Some people
That's
might dabble in the.
other things like that.
Other
Other
things,
things.
you know what I
Other pleasures. You know what I mean?
I think it all goes into the blanket of just stuff
Coping
to
with
cope with,
something.
Cope with,
certain,
yeah.
certain feelings that
So
you
like,
have.
what's your thoughts on that? Like, that's where you were like
Right,
made
yeah.
that point. I thought
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, I mean, we're all human. We all have it's called like our maladaptive coping strategies. So that's kind of like, you know, there's coping strategies. And then if you kind of go here, we have adaptive, which are the things that are going to help you feel good after. Do you know what I mean? So Popeyes tastes good, right? But what happens when Popeyes hits you? You know what I mean? You're like, hey, now I need to go to sleep. I need to sit down and do nothing.
Yeah.
And nothing changed, you know?
Yes,
Matter of fact, I'm still hungry. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
100%.
Like there's adaptive coping strategies and there's maladaptive, right? So I think the key here is that everything in moderation. You know what I'm saying? So maybe you do need a Popeyes. You know what I mean? Maybe people do have some things that are coping that are not necessarily the best thing for them. But I truly believe in like habit stacking, right? Like maybe you had barate, you know something that's not good for you. Allow it, right? But how could you couple that with something that is good for you, right? And so I often tell people that when we're experiencing hardship, we're experiencing different emotions, we want to cope because those emotions are too heavy. That is okay. What's going to help you feel alleviated and kind of rested and better so that later on you can actually have more capacity and then go back to that thing, okay? The reason why the maladaptive stuff and people say it's not good for you is because typically, let's say someone is like, you know, drinking, smoking, gambling, overeating, all these things, right? If you're doing it in an excessive way, it's going to numb you. Right? And so the problem is that if you get numbed from your emotions or numbed from your feelings and things that you're experiencing, you'll never be able to deal with it. So you just keep carrying it and carrying it and carrying it and continuing the coping strategy, and it becomes a cycle. And so if you want to break out of that cycle, you're going to have to tap into that body and say, you know, what do I need right now? Yeah.
You're gonna have to tap into Nora.
Oh, that too. Yeah, book a session immediately.
Speaking on substance abuse, that's something that is running rampant in the community, especially like right now, you know? There's a lot of people that are struggling with different mental health based off of this substance abuse that they've done or they're continuing to do. To a person who's struggling with these like issues with alcohol or drugs, are like what's something that they could do in order to combat that? Like what would be the best thing? Because again, a lot of people are struggling with it, whether it's marijuana, alcohol, and stuff like that. Like how do I get out of that habit, and how do I build something more structured to help me with these mental health issues that are going on inside of me?
Y'all are coming in hot right now. I love this. Such a great question. So I'm going to answer in two parts, okay? And the first part that I want to answer this question about is not talking to the substance user, but actually talking to our community, okay? In the way that I'm saying that I think our community, our issue is that if we see someone that is, you know, taking different substances, whether it's weed, alcohol, all the types of drugs, right? We start to shun them out. Okay, and we start to alienate them, and we start to label them. Okay, we go off kind of like, you know, they fell off, or they're waste, or they're doing this and they're doing that, you know. And I think actually it's not the person using. Actually, there's a problem. The problem is the way in which the community reacts to the person, right? So let's say someone is having a hard day, they engage in drugs or whatever the case is, and then we all isolate them, we alienate them, we like want I now, you know, all these things. Where's the person gonna go after? Right? They're going to go back to the thing that they know that's going to comfort them, the thing that's going to help them keep sane, the thing that's going to help them maybe be happy, depending on what drugs you're taking. You know what I mean? Something to keep you calm, right? And so I think the onus, first of all, is on the community, that we actually learn about drugs in a way that we recognize that it can be an addiction, right? And when someone has an addiction, it's not just stop what you're doing. There's levels to it, right? And I think the number one thing that can help someone get out of an addiction, or, you know, whether you're an excessive user of something, is to have a community to fall back on. You know what I mean? Like, think about our own like coping strategies that we do, right? Like we probably, the maladaptive ones, you probably wouldn't do it if you knew where to go. And so as a mental health therapist, I'm always the first to say, you don't have to go to therapy first, y'all. Okay? Don't let these people play you. Don't let me play. Don't let me play you. Okay? You need to have community, whether that is your family, right? And if that doesn't work for you, your friends, if that doesn't work for you, a community that you built brick by brick, like you need to know where to go to feel supported. But if the very people supporting you, you know, don't accept you, then there's nowhere to go, right? So, yeah, do what you want with that information. And then the second part is to the person using, right? Like, I think, actually for the community, I think something I learned that is so humbling and like a tearjerker in my job is that everyone's human and everyone has a story. Like, the other day, I was working at this community agency, and I was in my car after a long day, and I seen this guy. He is like, you know, unhoused, and he's cleaning the streets, okay? And I was so impressed by this. I was like, wow, like, nobody asked him. Everyone's going to look at him and say, like, oh, this guy's homeless, yada, 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 you know? He went out of his way and started cleaning the street, guys. I'm telling you, like, he cleaned all the garbage, and I just went up to him, and I said, like, you know, I just love what you're doing. And he's like, thanks, sis. You know, like some random guy. He's like, thanks, sis. And I was like, I just want to let you know, like, I see you. And it's just so dope. Like, I don't know. I just had to, you know, like, I was like, I see what you're doing. And like, and I was like, I just love it. And we started chatting it up, and then he told me his story, right? And he was like, yeah, like, I'm on like XY drug, you know, I've been doing it for years. Like, and he's like, I probably don't look like it, right? Like, he's looking good. The man takes care of himself, you know? He saw that too. And then he told me about his experience. He's like, you know, I used to work in roofing for 20 years, and I kept getting injured on the job, to the point that he couldn't do his job anymore. And he had a really respect, and he was telling me about all the architecture of the different buildings that were around, you know? And then he said, you know, after he got injured, a family member, a really close family member of his passed away. And then after that, he moved with another relative. The relative was supposed to take care of him, and then that guy ended up leaving. And so he just had nowhere to go. And that's how he became unhoused, you know? And so when I say that, because I say everyone has a story, and really get to know the people's story that you're with every single day. And if you're someone who's using substances, like, get support, you know, like, you don't have to do things alone. You know, go to spaces that you don't feel judged or ashamed for. And I know it's really hard in our community, but there are places and people that, you know, do this work, you know, so get the support and know that, like, at the end of the day, whatever it is that you're going through, wallah, you're not the only one going through it, and to seek that extra support.
That's a great answer. I love that answer. I feel like a lot of times people, like, they go through their struggles alone, and they don't know it's okay to ask for help. Especially your family, like, it's okay. Like, what are they gonna say? Obviously, they want the best for you, right? But I feel like it's time for us to open up. I feel like it's time for you.
I wasn't ready for this.
Immediately.
I wasn't ready.
So I'll start it off. I'm not gonna lie to you. So back in the day, I think I went to Somali when I was younger, right?
Hey, yeah.
So absolute culture shock from the second I landed, and then like for at least the first year, like everything was new, right? And one thing was, my Hoya was always, mashallah, she was always taking us to Duxies and all that. So that didn't stop when we got there. She enrolled me in a Duxie right away. And one thing I didn't know was, if you don't pass your Ashar, you're going to meet a stick, you know what I mean? On the side of your back, on your hand, you know what I mean? You're going to get beat down.
Right.
Like bad too. Like for someone that young too, it's like, my Hoya never used to beat me up like that. So I think, where is this rage coming from Tibet on kids, you know what I mean? So I feel like that wasn't something I was used to.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of people too that are watching can relate. I don't know if it's as common here, but over there, anyone who's been back home knows like there's kind of that religious trauma they're holding in where, oh, I was learning the Quran extra fast, and if I don't pass this Asha, I'm gonna get beat up. So I have to memorize.
Memorization on 10.
Memorization's on 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not out of love necessarily, but it's
Yeah.
like I need to pass my Asha. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Out of fear.
So, I guess what would you say to me and all the people that I guess been through something like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think again, it's something that I've definitely heard about growing
Yeah, for
up.
sure.
Like, not me looking at
Yeah.
like, yeah, I experienced that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're reading too fast. You
Yeah.
too much breath in the way that you're
Yeah,
reading.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so it's something that we experience, right? And like you said, some people don't even grow up with parents like that. But then Duxi is your first experience
Yeah.
of that, and I think it does lead to religious trauma
sure.
and other things
For
also
sure.
lead to that as well. And I would say the first thing is like, you know, acknowledging that,
Yes.
right? Because if you say like, Adi, it happens, whatever, right? But you're still like, look, like I'm
Yeah.
like just saying, like your grown age, you're still bringing it up, right? Because
Yeah,
it's something that you experienced,
Yeah, yeah.
but something that actually impacted you. You
For
know what
sure,
I
for
mean? And you
sure.
had many questions about. So
Yeah.
I would say like allowing yourself to name it, like this
Yeah.
happened to me,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really messed up,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I didn't like how it feel.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and who does that guy think he
Who's the guy
is?
think
You
he
know,
is?
and then like once you're able to name it and you're able
Yeah.
to say that this thing happened, right? Maybe you accept it, right?
sure.
Maybe there's forgiveness that needs to
Yeah.
happen, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe there's something that you need to let go of, right?
Yeah.
But let's say, for example, you carry this with you, and you don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Like I would ask you, like, how does that continue to impact you? Like,
Yeah.
how, like what impacts do you think it had on you after?
So it did had impacts, but I don't advise this for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
But I dealt with the issue head on.
Okay.
Like I beat my Malin up after.
Yeah.
Yes. so I got my eye for
Yeah,
an
you
eye.
could got that.
So you know, you should I love it.
Ah.
Because he was a spicy guy, like he was on my case, so I had
Yeah.
to get it back.
Yeah.
It was wrong. I don't advise people to get it back like that.
Oh,
but
okay.
that's how I coped with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was my
You
coping.
let it out, right? Your body
Right
was
away.
talking to you, and you let
My
it out.
body, yeah.
So,
I let it out.
I'm learning, Nora. You see?
So I think alhamdulillah, I was able to get out of it immediately. I
Yes.
snapped right back into it.
Yes.
I knew it wasn't right,
Mm.
and that's how I dealt with it. But it's not right. I don't
No, but
recommend
like,
it.
no, I hear you, but like,
Yeah.
and the opposite of that is like a young kid not saying anything,
Yeah.
and then like being mad at their parents, being
Yeah.
mad at the ma'alin, and then holding in all that like anger,
Rage, yeah.
and it becomes resentment, you know. And again, like emotions that are not released, talked about, or experienced are held in. They still manifest.
For sure, for
right?
sure.
So
Somehow.
does a kid become like isolated? Do they become angry?
Yeah.
You know, how many kids you see come home from Dixie and they're running up the walls because ship almost you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's like, so we're like parents think they're sending their kids to this place where they're gonna get like, you know, ashar and deen and daqan and all this
Yeah,
stuff, right?
yeah.
But then really they're coming back and they're like, what? So
Unhinged,
I think
yeah.
for parents listening, whether your kid's going to school, whether your kid's going to Duxi, whether you're taking them to an extracurricular program,
sure.
kawar qaba, like know what's
For
going
sure.
on, ask them questions, how are they doing, and know that you wouldn't want something for your child where they're being hurt, harmed, etc.
Absolutely.
So I think alhamdulillah, what we can learn from that is that times have changed, and
For sure.
you know, parents to step in and
No,
to
but I
support.
love that answer because I feel like all jokes aside, like I apologize to the Ma'alin again. But one thing that really did help was my mom noticed it right away,
Okay.
and she took me out of that environment, and she got like this Ma'alin to come to the house instead.
Mm-hmm.
Like she really like was on top of it. So
And
I
she
feel
was
like
being
that was-
vigilant, huh?
alhamdulillah, she's being very vigilant.
Yeah, mashallah.
She's on top of it. But yeah, alhamdulillah, I like that answer though. I
Yeah.
feel like if the parents are really involved,
Yeah.
a lot of these little knick-knack things that happen to the kids like
Yeah.
growing up
Yeah.
wouldn't happen as much, you
Mhm.
know?
Believe your children.
Yeah, believe
Yeah.
them. Yes,
Wow.
yes.
Say it again. Believe your
Believe
children.
your children. Believe your children.
So I have a question.
Yes, go
Just like a quick one. Khalid confronted the pin, right?
Okay.
There's a lot of the people that they might take that towards a hatred of their own culture, sometimes a hatred of their own people like that. Oh, some people, like, you know, maybe young kids might have a little bit of hatred of Somali uncles just because it reminds them of their Duxi teacher, or some people might have even a hatred of hatred of religion in general, like, oh, the Quran is kind of like associated with pain, or the deen is associated with fear.
I personally know people that told me they left Islam because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you if someone comes to you with that type of issue, like what is like I know it's a very tough thing to do handle, but what is like one piece of advice would you tell them?
Yeah, I think, you know, holding space for each other is super important, you know, and I think, you know, and I do have these conversations with folks that come in, and I'm really happy because a lot of the folks that seek me, like like proudly, alhamdulillah, say, look, I'm a black Muslim Somali therapist, you know? So when you're coming to seek support, right, at least for me, you know we're going to have those conversations if you're okay with it, right? And so already I know at the end of the day, qofka, like their qalbi is still, it's still nur, you know what I mean? Because you're having the conversations. Even I say, like, you know, if it's bothering you and you still have the heart to talk about it, you're someone that still cares, you know what I mean? But having a soft place to land, to be able to talk about it and say, yeah, these things happened. And they actually, this is how it made me feel. Yeah. And I think sometimes as I don't know if it's like in our culture or just with age, like we always say people like, you know, khalas, it already happened. Like forget about it, you know? But we can't forget about the things that are so heavy on our hearts, because I still got to carry that with me, right? So thinking about, you know, where can you go? Where is this soft space? Where is this, like we talk a lot about safe spaces, but I recently learned from one of my mental health therapists that I like love dearly. She talks about like having a brave space. And a brave space is somewhere that you're going to go with courage, with vulnerability, and being able to talk about hard things, because not everywhere feels safe, but as you show up with bravery and vulnerability, right, like you can find those connections. So these are normal conversations, and I love that you're asking that, because I think maybe for some of the listeners and the viewers, they might say to themselves, you know, oh Allah, like all these things are happening to me, like, and I want to be close to you, but it's pulling me apart. But just know that Allah has so much mercy. Sure. He has so much forgiveness. He has so much rahmah for you, you know. And so recognizing that no matter what, like you can return, you know. And what I love, and this actually I learned from my stepmom, which was great, is that she is someone that always told stories about the love of Allah. I never heard this woman for a day in her life talk about hellfire, you know. She always said, oh, like we're just driving. I remember, like, you know, living in California, she's like, oh, you know, what's it called? Like she talks about Jannah so vividly. She talks about the transition so vividly and so beautifully and so peacefully that I was like, wow, that's so dope, you know? So I tell parents, and even myself, I try as a parent now, is to teach your children and talk to your children in of Islam through the lens of love. You know, yes, we know what we need to know to fear Allah, to respect Allah, and all these things. We know this, and it's drilled in us. Don't worry about it. But also teach them through a lens of love. And I think as adults now, we also have to learn Islam through that lens. And wallahi, I think it brings so much people back to it in a way that it opens up their hearts. You know, so seek knowledge, seek your own knowledge, in a way that feels comfortable for you. You know, little sisterhood, little brotherhood, something. Get yourself a little halaqah moment. You know what I mean? Like we can create those spaces.
I love that answer.
You talked a lot about like youth work, right? You're a therapist, also as a social worker too. I work with you, and one thing I realized as the years go on is sometimes like the issues that are going on within their families, hearing about those stories can weigh down on you. So now as a youth worker, I'm experiencing that, but now I'm thinking about it from a perspective of now as a therapist and as a social worker, right? Not only are you have your work life, but you also have your home life as a mother too, for example. So how do you balance that whole situation? And as a therapist yourself, hearing people and talking to people about their own bad experience, how do you deal with it?
So many ways. There's so many ways that we deal with it. First of all, we're human, okay? I vent all the time. Like, first and foremost, like, if I'm having a hard day, I'll just tell my husband, sit down. I don't need you to talk to me. I just need you to hear me out. And I'll just kind of dump on my day. Like, not talking about any client work or anything like that. But I'll just
that'd
like,
be a violation, right?
That's a violation. We don't do all of that. But I'll just tell him, like, you know, I had a really hard day, or like my heart feels super heavy, or things like that, you know? But, okay, so I would say the first thing is, like, you have to have support, right? So I have a therapist, you know, I haven't been in a while. Sorry, sis, I'm coming back. But like, you know, I have my own therapist, you know, and that helped me tremendously with my own life, because I think what people have to recognize is that we're human and that we have our own stuff, just like you said. So before I even pick up the vicarious trauma, because that's other people's stuff that I'm like experiencing, I got my own trauma. Okay, I got my own dealings. So going to therapy has really helped me lessen the load on that, because something I learned in therapy is the expectations. I hold people to a standard that's never been met before sometimes, you know, and I expect so much to happen, and then when it doesn't happen, my heart is like, what? Like I get broken, I get so defeated, and my therapist really helped me say, like, girl, are those expectations or is that the reality? And now when I see myself like unhappy or something, I can say, oh, that was my expectation, but that's not actually what's gonna happen. So I'm able to be more like level-headed, which before I wasn't, right? And then a couple other things is I have a lot of peer support. So I'm in a peer support group for therapists, mothers who have their own private practice.
Wow.
Shout out to y'all.
That's
I'm-
Very niche.
Yeah, we niche.
Very
We,
niche.
we have a couple masterminds going on, okay? I also in another therapist group just for black therapists. We call ourselves the self-care crew, and
Incredible.
we're on speed dial if you need anything. We all have a group chat, right? I have a wonderful, amazing, supportive, classy, like amazing supervisor. Shout out to you, Shayla. And she just helps me so much through the clinical stuff that I might carry, through the experiences that I might have at work with different clients. And in that, it's a group supervision. So, like, think about that, right? As a therapist, I have like 3-4 peer support groups. I have supervision. I have my own therapy. And then my second therapist, aka my husband, that just has to listen to me, you know? And even, brother, wallahi, I even tell my kids how I feel.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
I have a
good.
5-year-old.
Yeah.
And he's like, how are you doing? And I'm like, sit down. And I just take up space, y'all. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
tell my kids sit down and I say, like, you know, Hoya's not happy today.
Yeah.
I'm really struggling right now.
Yeah.
I'm really frustrated.
Yeah.
And to the point, like, if he sees my face turning, he's like, Hoya, are you frustrated today?
Yeah.
Are you annoyed?
Nervous.
You know? And just because we're having that conversation, it at least creates space to have that.
Yeah.
So if I'm someone that's supporting, but I have all these things that I need to lean on to support, imagine the average person who's not seeking anybody.
Has nothing. Yeah.
And funny enough, that's something I actually want to touch on. Like,
Yeah.
first of all, I want to say, mashallah, like, you have a very nice, you know what I mean? And it's a very big support system.
Alhamdulillah.
And
Built
kinda-
it. Built it by hand, bro. Brick by brick. Was
by
not
brick.
offered. Huh? It was not offered to me.
But then we're talking about, like, you were talking about earlier, like, finding people or finding resources that could help you through
Yeah.
different situations. So let's just say, for example, I'm the person that's struggling.
Yeah.
My family isolated me. I have nobody that I could go to. I have nobody to seek out. Where's my next option? Like, what do I do? Nobody's listening to what I have to say.
Yeah.
Nobody's giving me the attention or things that I need in
Yeah.
order to cope with some of the stuff that I'm going on. Therapy might not necessarily be something that I'm open to, or I might not have the resources to go to
Yeah.
therapy. What do I do then?
First of all, that is a lot to carry. That is a lot to experience. And I know, like, that's just like someone's real life, you know? And the reality is that we all think that the things that we're carrying, maybe the trauma or the experience that we have, is burdensome, and we're worried about bringing our burdens to other people. But you guys are friends. Y'all are, like, you know, a crew. Like, if somebody was actually genuinely experiencing something, they said, brother, like, well, I've just experienced this thing. I need to, like, tell you about it. Or just, like, you know, you're going to be there. Like, let's say someone drops something on you saying, oh, this thing happened to me, right? Before you
sure.
even, like, talk about it, you're going to pull up, right?
Absolutely.
And so the reality is that you are not a burden.
Yeah.
Whoever it is that's listening that might be in that scenario, like, you're
Yeah.
not a burden, you know? And there's somebody, even one person that's there that's willing to just even hold space for you and listen
Yeah.
to you, right? And so the first thing might be is I would help that person recognize, like, you know, who can you identify in your life that you just like being around and spend time with them. You ain't got to even share nothing. Who can you spend time with? Because energy is important, right? And if you find someone that you like to spend some time with, what parts of you can they help, you know, hold up, right? Maybe you're going to tell them a little bit about how you feel. Or maybe you just quietly sit together, you know, like, that's beautiful too,
Yeah.
right? And then there's other things too, right? There's, like, online communities. There's community. So in Ottawa, or at least Ontario, I'd say there's a lot of community health centers that actually offer free counseling.
Okay.
And a lot of them actually have free counseling where you can specifically ask for a racialized or a black therapist. A lot of the different programs now. I even say myself, like, my number one line I tell people, like, I might not be the right therapist for you, but anybody that knocks my door, my virtual door, anybody who calls me, anybody who emails me, if I'm not the person for you, let me help you find the answer. Like, you just need one thing that's going to help spark that. And so, yeah, reach out to somebody.
For sure.
Anybody.
Absolutely.
You know, first of all, that's an amazing response. I was even motivated to do something, like, just to let people know. But just to, like, also talk about ourselves. Khalid inspired me.
Yes.
You know, this is something that was heavy on my
Heart.
conscious right now.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, a lot of us as, like, Somali people, like, immigrant families, you know what I mean? Our parents came to Canada, right? They sacrificed so much to come here, you know? And that comes with a lot of pressure, right? So a lot of our parents had very official roles, and then they lost their jobs coming here, and they had to sacrifice and make money by any means necessary. So then you're there, like, I'm doing this all for you, right? And then you have, as, like, you know, some of us here are like eldest sibling. Some of us were middle. You know what I mean? But if you always have like younger siblings, you always have people looking up to you. You know what I mean? Even me, I have younger siblings where they look up to me. You know what I mean? So you're getting pressure from up and down. You know what I mean? So you can either become a diamond sometimes with the pressure, or you can just crumble. You know what I mean? You become a khasara. You know what I mean? And then your parents are ashamed of you, and your younger siblings are just like, damn, big bro is like not saying much really. You know what I mean? So like, how does like that? I feel like that's I feel that sometimes like a lot of pressure to succeed, and not only to succeed, to do above and beyond. You know what I mean? We didn't. Sometimes you might hear something. We didn't come here for you to be XYZ. You know, a lot of people might hear that. You know what I mean? But like, so how would you help someone, or like, what's your advice for that type of person, or for someone like me?
Oh, that's a lot, and I think I jokingly say this, but I mean it with my whole heart, and maybe if there's enough requests we can think about it, but there needs to be a support group for eldest born children. I don't care if you are a brother, if you're a sister, if you're eldest born, mashallah, you are carrying so much, you know? And so I think it's really important to recognize, again, like you're going to hear a pattern here today, like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, right? When something happens, just being able to name it. Like, what would happen right now if you said to yourself, like, man, I'm like the second born, I have all this pressure on me, you know, I have to perform well, and you start to name it and talk about it in a way that's genuinely happening, right? Which then allows yourself to know that the pressure I'm feeling, I'm not crazy, you know? And that's the thing where we have to talk about it, because when you talk about it, you recognize that, okay, the pressure you're feeling, the sleepless nights, the tossing and turning, like the stress, all these things, it's coming from somewhere, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing I'd say, be mindful of how much pressure you're also adding to yourself. Because a lot of times it's coming from the top, it's coming from the bottom, but it's also coming in from here. I have to be, I have to do, I have to this, right? And I think I wouldn't be here if I didn't say, like, wallahi, this is where our deen actually comes in, right? Because I think sometimes, like, we're so focused on the dunya, right? Like, today, right now, that we forget about the akhirah, you know? And I think oftentimes of, like, working so hard and then tomorrow you're gone. Like, what? You know?
What is it all for,
Right. So a part of our healing is actually slowing down. Okay? And when we slow down, it lets you do things, okay? It allows you to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that you genuinely don't feel rushed in that connection, right? It allows you to ask yourself questions like, yo, what do I need right now? What do I need to feel okay? What do I need to feel full? What do I need to feel energized, you know? And it allows you, like, this is a gag, right? Like, people don't want us to rest, because when we rest, we start thinking about things, right? We start to be creative, okay? So you can, like, honestly let go of some of that pressure when you rest, because you're like, you know, what is actually important to me, right? So rest, seek support, connect with your creator if that's something that, you know, is available to you and something that you do, right? It's super helpful. And know that, again, you're not alone in that pressure. And if you're feeling the weight of it, it's because it's there. Right? So get the support.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. No, I'll definitely take notes from that. Definitely handle that.
I'll circle back. You know, do a follow-up session.
The invoice is starting to look
Three people. Huh?
3 people right now. Like.
For me, I'll give a scenario. I kind of talked already about like my own experiences and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a scenario, and I would love to see like what type of insight you would give, or some sort of advice that you would give to me about the situation. Let's just say, for example, I have a friend who's struggling. It's very noticeable. I'm starting to notice that he's going through, whether it's he's secluding himself from the group. He doesn't necessarily want to hang out with us anymore. Then as he starts to kind of acclimate himself back into the group, you start noticing different habits that weren't there from before. Continue on thinking that everything is normal. And then I start to see that he's starting to use different sort of substances. So how do I go about having a productive conversation and really getting to a place where I can see, you know, growth or the betterment of my brother, you know what I mean, in a way that, you know, could work, honestly, not just getting I'm okay, I'm good. Like, how do I go about that?
That's a common experience, right? So, like, I just want to know, like, quickly, like, how would you guys approach that? Like, what would you say if that's something that happened, or that's something that you see? How do you think you'd approach it, and why?
I think, Mamba, you can go ahead.
We flipping the script on these guys, y'all. Okay, I want to know.
I don't know. I think I would. The first thing I would probably do is take a step back, right, and then plan out my course of action. That's something I would do. See what would be the best, because again, approaching people can be hard because everybody kind of reacts to things in different ways.
Right.
You know, for example, if I could go to Khalid, right? Khalid might start bursting out, yeah, I'm good. What are you talking? What are you talking about?
Right.
But then having a situation where I actually, you know, like I'm saying, yo, is everything okay in a secluded place, feeling safe? Ismail might open up. So everybody's different. So
Everyone's
I would plan out my thing first, and then go about the direction. I would ask me personally. I'm only gonna ask one time. That's just me though.
Oh, he said, "Are you good?" I'm good. That's it.
No,
Okay,
but I
you're
think it's
horrible.
one of those
Huh?
ones
You're
where
horrible.
I ask and then I'll see. But
Yeah.
because the thing is, for me, is sometimes I don't want to be too pushy.
Yeah.
You know, that's my thing. Is like I don't want to be into a situation where because sometimes, and now this is something that I've seen firsthand, where sometimes I feel like if you ask and continuously ask, if someone's not ready to
Yep.
communicate and tell them, like, explain to them what's going on, sometimes you can actually push them away. So that's something that I've seen, and you know, it's happened to me.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where I came into like coming
I
to
hear
that
you, I
conclusion
hear you.
from. But for me, I'll ask. And then I'll see how things are going, and maybe I'll ask again, depending on who it
I
is.
feel.
Now he opened up. He said, maybe I'll ask again. He said on the one time. Okay, I like that.
I feel
Okay,
like for me,
great.
wallahi, honestly, one thing that did help, like I've been in those situations a few times. I feel like one thing that really does help is start the conversation by like me being vulnerable or tell them something about me. You know what I
okay.
mean? That I might be
Okay.
going through.
Go ahead,
And then
therapist.
eventually, no, I did
They'll
that for
open
a
up.
time. So they're gonna open up. They're gonna be like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what? Well, that's what I'm going through too. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And more often than not, you guys might be going through something similar, and like they can really relate to that. So I feel like
You have a-
once you open that door,
You have a doctorate?
well,
In process.
I think
process
this
right
guy,
now.
he might be
He's
I'm
not
looking for a
something.
job
He's
actually.
on to something. We are looking for
But
practitioners.
yeah, honestly, I feel like
Yeah.
creating, like you said it so many times, like creating that environment,
A brave
Yeah.
space.
a brave space,
Come
exactly,
on,
not a safe
come on.
space,
Yes.
a brave,
Brave
space.
space.
Yes.
I'm
Shout out to
trademarking
Shannon Black. I got that from
Yes.
her.
No,
She was no, my girl Shannon Black.
Oh,
That was
this is Shannon Sharp.
Oh,
No.
Shannon Sharp.
sorry.
That guy's a goat still, huh?
He's still a go. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's so funny.
Shout out Shannon Black.
Yeah.
And
who
shout out
taught-
Shayla, right?
Yeah, Shayla. Oh yeah.
That's your
Yes.
Shayla, huh?
My Shayla, my Shayla, my
That was good.
supervisor. So that's awesome. So you're saying like give them space, but like also like try to think of a plan, and then you're coming in with the vulnerability. These are great strategies.
Yeah, so for me, I think I'm the opposite of Yusuf. Sometimes I push too much.
Okay.
So it pushes people away, but
He's
it's also
very- he's very annoying.
it's 50% success rate. Sometimes I say, no, I know something's wrong with you. What's going on?
Mhm.
Or I'll call them like
So
sometimes.
fluff.
Yeah, sometimes some people like they go ghost for a while.
Yeah.
Then I'll say, yo, what's wrong with you? What's happening?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't work. But I need to learn from you, and I need to learn from Khalid too as well. Because sometimes I'm a one-way street.
Yeah.
I only take in. Like other people, they can tell me everything, and I'm okay with it. I don't like hate on it, but I sometimes struggle to say something,
Yeah.
to be vulnerable. You know, I gotta
Just say it now.
I
Just say it.
gotta learn that. I gotta learn to be like Khalid, to be vulnerable a bit.
Yeah.
I gotta learn Yusuf
Yeah.
how to not push too much.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I feel like
Wow.
That's-
These are great answers. Y'all
Yeah.
have it in you. So I'm actually going to say I don't think there's one right answer
Yeah,
because
for
I
sure.
feel like everybody's different and everyone has different ways of connecting and different ways of communicating. Everybody has different needs. So something that might work is just asking the person flat out, like, hey, I noticed some things are going on. I'm just wondering, how can I support you? And we're all worried about that. We're worried about if we ask the question, the person's going to say, I'm good, I don't need it, blah, blah, you know. But what that does is actually opens a door. And when you open that door, when the person's ready, right, we want to make sure the door stays open. Remember we talked about substance abuse and things in the community and how everyone's like, oh, this person's doing that. They're lock off.
Right off.
They're right off. You know,
Khasara.
it's waste, right?
Yeah.
And the person doesn't have somewhere they can go. When they reach their hand out in the dark, like they can't feel somebody on the other side, right? So staying with the person is not necessarily like, how are you doing? How can I help you? What do you need right now? Or staying away from them. But it's like that periodic check-in of like, you know, how can I support you? I'm here for you. If you know the person, what do they like? Maybe you're not talking about the problem, but you're in community, right? Yo, come play ball. That's wellness. Okay. Yo, let's go have some shah together. That is wellness. You know what I mean? Like, let's just kick up or whatever, just hang out or something. Like, these are all things that can be moments of wellness where you're actually having a pulse on your friend, your family member, or whoever. And it doesn't have to be this formal thing of like, let's talk about it. So I think the more vulnerable spaces that you create, the more connection that you create with this person, eventually they will feel safe or brave enough to be able to tell you what's going on. But don't overthink it. You know, sometimes we're playing this like imaginary, like skipping rope. Like, all right, I'll go when they give me the green light. I'll go when they, message me. I'll go when this happens, right? But the reality is, just go consistently and let them know, yo, I don't know what you're going through. We don't gotta talk about it right now. But just so you know, whenever you're ready, fam, I'm here. Hold it down.
For sure.
So right?
I love that answer.
And eventually the person comes around.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I know that was the last thing, but this is just a little add on to it, little cherry on top.
Okay.
But like, suicide rates for men are extremely way more higher
Yep.
than women, and we're the tough guys. You know what I mean? Supposedly, you know what I mean? What's one advice you would tell people, like someone who's not thinking like that, but someone who can? How can we reduce those numbers in our community?
Yeah, notice the signs, right? So suicide is not something that just happens overnight, that someone just wants to do because they wake up, right? It's happened over time, right? It's kind of like accumulation of experiences about, maybe traumas and things that they've experienced. So I would say like the number one thing is like notice the signs. So for example, they'll say like if the person's isolating, right? If a person around you is starting to feel really hopeless, everything they talk about is saying, well, there's no point. I'm not going to, there's no point in doing this. I really don't see the vision, and they're not really thinking forward and future. These are things to look for because hopelessness and helplessness are a big sign as well. Another one is like sudden changes, right? So if there's someone who's extremely outgoing, you'll notice they're going to retract a lot, right? And like kind of like isolate themselves and be more introverted, if that makes sense. And actually the opposite, someone who's super introverted, if they're having these thoughts, they're going to say, oh, I don't want no one to know that I'm like thinking these things. Let me fake the funk, So they're going to walk in rooms, and we always hear like, he was the happiest guy, or he was the most jolliest person, because you're trying to not get noticed, right? So if you're seeing major changes in your friend, right, or your family member, isolation, change in behavior, change in their routine, someone that you don't really can't get a hold of, right? Debate like this, like pay attention to that, and just asking people like, how are you doing? Like subhanAllah, before I even became a mental health therapist, like there was a time in my neighborhood where a young woman was talking a lot about this, and everyone got together like, yo, did you hear so and so, like they're talking about completing suicide, like what are we gonna do? And I wasn't a therapist, I wasn't trained, but something in my heart said, let me just go and ask them like, how are you doing? Or another thing could be like, yo, do you have a plan? Like asking them what the plan is. Because from like, if someone you think is going to happen and they say the thing, like, this is what I'm thinking about, asking them about the plan does not make them want to do it more. Okay. Yeah. It actually allows the person to hear themselves. Yeah. Say, I was thinking that. Like say a word, I was thinking that, Yeah. And I just think it's like, suicide in our community, again, is seen as something that's weak, but wallah is the complete opposite, right? Like, think about the things that the person experiences to think about that point. Yeah. And then think about the wisdom and the strength and the courage that the person has to have not completed it, right? So it's actually a sign of strength, because something brought you to that edge, and subhanAllah, you're still here. And if you're not, may you rest in peace, and may Allah, we make dua for everybody, right? Yeah. But I think it does not make you weak. It just gives us information, like what was going on for this person. So pay attention to the signs, and depression, stress, anxiety, suicide, let's just talk about it. That's it. We're going to name it. Sure. And if it's in the room, it'll come out, right? Sure. And if it's not, then alhamdulillah, we did our due diligence, So don't be scared about it.
One thing I feel like, so I did actually a suicide prevention training actually for my work. And one thing that they kept telling us and they kept reminding us about is whenever you feel like some people are showing signs of, they want to commit suicide, usually you have to be very frank and ask them outright. Straight up. So that's something that actually I completely remembered right now.
That's this training.
100%.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that you have to be kind of very clear about certain things. Is this something that you're contemplating? Do you want to commit suicide? Because sometimes, and this is another thing that they also said too, was a lot of times they'll give you telltale signs that they want to, sometimes they'll say it outright. Sometimes they'll do some, so completely exactly what you said, it reminded me of that training. And that's something I feel like they should be offered across the board for everybody. Because one thing about it is, whenever there are events or whenever there are situations where there are trainings that could be about talking about mental health, a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, me personally, before I used to push that to the side. Right. Say, I don't want to hear this. I already know how to deal with my own situation. Why? But I feel like sometimes hearing that type of stuff can help you not forget about dealing with it within yourself, but
help
also
others,
helping
yeah.
others. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's something that's very important because again, you never know what people are going through, and you never know like again, like if people are in bad situations or good situations. So it's always good to know and educate yourself on these type of
Yeah.
things.
Absolutely,
Yeah, that was
absolutely.
a really great question. Like, thank
No.
you so much for bringing that up.
First of all, this was an amazing discussion.
Absolutely.
I to say the least.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I enjoyed it. I learned a
Absolutely.
lot.
Yeah.
You know, I think we definitely have to do like a part 2 for sure.
For sure.
You know, I was really
sure.
nervous coming here, but already I'm like, hey, we need a part 2 for sure.
We'll definitely get like maybe get a part 2 with the viewers. You guys, things that you guys want more things
You know
to
what
ask
I'm
Nora.
thinking?
Mhm.
Why don't we do a part 2, but like live, where people can ask questions?
Wow.
Like, at an event or something.
Okay.
That'd be
Like,
fun.
that'd be
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah, that'd
Let's
be
do
fun.
that.
Right?
I'm
Yeah.
down. I'm
Come
down.
on, bro.
Yeah.
I like that.
I
No,
like
but like
that.
I think I want to say like, and this is fun, and like, you know, I love this experience, but just for the general public, 'cause I think people don't actually know what therapy does and what it can do. Therapy is not a place where you go and get advice like you should do this and you should do that and you should consider this. Like that's actually not what therapy is. But when you come to therapy, it's a space where you can hear yourself, right? It's kind of like a sounding board. You know, think about sometimes you say something to yourself and you believe it, but then you say it out loud to someone else. You're like, nah, never mind, I'm straight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a safe like place where you can have a sounding board, where you can work through patterns, where you can hear things. So it's like a co-created space. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna help you, help me, help you,
Yeah.
and it's a collective effort. You know what I'm saying? So I can't wait for that. That's
I feel
awesome.
like, and on that point too, I feel like when you hear someone else is going through what you're going through, you're like, oh, it's
Helps
not that
you.
bad. Like we can figure it out. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's not just me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Well, we appreciate you for joining this episode
Sure.
again. For sure, we're gonna have a part 2.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
And if you guys really like this episode, make sure that you guys go drop a like and subscribe on YouTube. It's 2.5 Mollies, and thank you guys for watching.
And shout out to Nora and
yeah.
Elmi
Yeah,
Counseling and
Elmi
Wellness.
Counseling and Wellness. So
Yeah.
we're on Instagram. Feel free to follow our page, Elmi Counseling and Wellness, or you can look up www.noraelmi.ca.
Yeah.
If you're in Ontario looking for a therapist, I'll be more than happy to support you or just to guide you to the right resources in the right direction
Absolutely.
as well.
We're gonna have
100%.
all our
Everything
socials
down
in the
below.
description.
Everything's gonna be
Tap
down
it.
below.
I love
Take
it.
For
care,
sure.
guys.
All
Thank
right,
you for
thank you.
watching.